Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. Another racing code has been put under scrutiny with claims made in Parliament of live baiting in greyhound training. One whistleblower has spoken of the cries she heard during the practice, described as distressing, and a warning some may find details in this story confronting.
A few years on, Jane still remembers the sound of the live animals she fed to greyhounds in training.
It was horrible, it was excruciating, I had my fingers in my ears, the sound of it.
Jane, who's too scared to be identified, claims she was sent to pet shops to buy guinea pigs and rabbits, as well as asked to trap possums.
And then put him in a Hessian bag, and that way it didn't cut or scratch the dog or bite the dog, so then come race day they didn't have no identification marks on them that they'd been scratched.
Jane and others have approached MP Christy Johnston to allege live baiting is still used in the industry.
How can these whistleblowers possibly present the evidence they have without fear of serious retribution?
I take it on face value that these are coming to you now and this is happening as we speak, but they must of course be provided to Mr Murray.
It's now unclear if greyhound racing is also part of the review announced this week. The practice is illegal. The RSPCA says it's not a common complaint they receive.
We need to have stronger laws and stronger penalties. The penalties here in Tasmania are, hit on the wrist with a piece of limp lettuce. Peak Harness stakeholders group Botra agreed to a no-confidence motion in the Director of Racing this week. This afternoon, Justin Helmich made his own statement, saying nothing is in the way of people speaking up, but advising them not to post defamatory, offensive or improper material about oversight bodies. A statement viewed by some as a gag order.
The Director of Racing, in his statement today, is telling participants, if you make a complaint, I'm going to tell you to shut up. This is a disgrace.
Harness racing meets will be held tomorrow night here at Elwick and in Launceston on Sunday. Despite the concerns aired this week, there have been no immediate changes made to the sport. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmanian News.
As the Reserve Bank mulls an 11th consecutive interest rate rise, the impact of the past 10 hikes is beginning to show in Tasmania. Financial counsellors and banks reporting a jump in people seeking help with their finances, but some have managed to avoid trouble.
A trying time for Tasmanians with a loan. Fiona Moore says the past few months have been a busy period for the Anglicare team.
We was probably doing 6 to 10 calls in a day, and now we're up around the 15 to 20 mark a day.
Surging rates eating away at family budgets.
All sorts of demographics, all genders, ages, it's just across the board, anybody who has a mortgage.
These interest rate rises are really crushing Tasmanians. We have some of the highest poverty rates in the country.
The Reserve Bank revealing in a recent report they're also keeping an eye on those falling behind. Locally, My State Bank is also seeing changes from borrowers.
With the interest rate increases and the cost of living pressures, we have seen a little bit of change in people's repayment behaviour and being a bit further behind.
The bank's half-year report showed those in arrears by 30 and 90 days have risen in the past few months, though below the national average. The bank also revealing some customers are actually in front. A quarter of borrowers are a year ahead, nearly a third are up by 6 months, while nearly 60% are one payment in front.
Gives themselves a buffer, so for the tough times they might be able to not make a repayment because they've made payments ahead.
Tasmanians experiencing mortgage stress are advised to firstly contact their lender. Financial experts say repossession is a last resort for banks, and tools are available to help people navigate their way through this period of higher interest rates.
Deferring repayments, you could move payments to interest only for a period, or even in need restructure your whole loan.
And the earlier you get in, the quicker things can be done, the easier it is to fix things.
John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian truck drivers have had their lights on all day to pay tribute to a fellow driver who died in a crash in Launceston last week. Facebook group Tassie Truckers called on drivers around the state to light up Tassie and post their pictures as a mark of respect for Daryl Keane. He's been described as a much-loved and key member of the De Bruin transport family. The 68-year-old suffered a medical episode last Wednesday when his semi-trailer collided with a car before crashing into the back of a house at Invermay. A major medal hope for Tasmania has been dashed at the National Athletics Championships in Brisbane. Star runner James Hansen was among several athletes who missed out on day one of the tournament after their flight was cancelled.
He's as fast as the wind, but James Hansen's had his wings clipped. He was barred from checking in for his flight to Brisbane yesterday through no fault of his own.
To basically get told that you're not able to check in because they're over the weight, it was a little bit hard to take.
The Jetstar flight was eventually cancelled after a medical emergency on board an inbound plane. While offered seats on the next available flights, it was too late for James and his 1,500-metre hopes.
I sat at home and I watched the race, and I think it just gives you that little burning desire on the inside going, geez, I wish I was out there.
Missing this race makes it harder to qualify for the World Championships later this year.
And for James, I expect he'll have to do it either in Japan or Europe later this season.
It's understood 5 other athletes were affected by the flight's cancellation.
We are disappointed, and I think no one will be more disappointed than the athletes themselves. They train very hard all year round, and this is their grand final.
That includes Alexander Creek, who's missed out on his 400-metre event.
I believe he would have progressed to the final of the Open 400 or certainly the semi-finals.
James is still on track to compete this weekend, in the running for a medal in the 5,000 metres.
I believe things happen for a reason, and I'm going to end up being fresher for this 5K on Sunday.
Part of the 42-strong delegation taking on the rest of the country.
We still have one of the largest contingents of open and under 20 competitors that we've had in recent years, so it's very exciting to see.
Annie Green, 7 Tasmanian News.
A draft proposal by the state government claiming to enhance environmental fish farming standards has come under fire from independent scientists. Our leaders are being accused of trying to weaken the rules as experts urge them to head back to the drawing board.
A burgeoning industry long wrapped up in controversy is making waves once again in Tasmanian waters.
The science cannot keep up to speed with the expansion of the industry. So we're really monitoring these species potentially to their extinction.
This time it's the Tasmanian government's draft environmental standards for marine finfish farming that's turning heads among scientists and policy experts.
They really provide less environmental protection and less clarity than the status quo.
The fine print put under the microscope, with questions raised around specific plans to expand leasing arrangements for salmon practices in the state.
Currently, the regulations allow for a footprint of up to 35 metres from the lease boundary. What's being proposed is up to 100 metres from the lease boundary for significant environmental impacts.
Salmon heavyweights currently avoid paying council rates on their marine leases in Tasmanian waters. When some councils wanted that to change, State Parliament legislated to protect marine farms from any local government levies.
Most of the environmental licenses for salmon leases in the state are due to expire in September of this year. And it's really unclear how that's going to play out. The standards aren't ready to use.
While the Premier reiterates a commitment to independent and ethical oversight.
Reforms will ensure that we do have the highest possible standards when it comes to environmental laws.
The concerns have been submitted through a consultation process, but it remains unclear when a final copy will be released and implemented. Grace Evans, 7 Tasmanian News.
The Northern Midlands Council has been forced to close a popular recreational area due to hoons using it as a racing track. Members of the public reported the destruction at Milldam Reserve in Longford.
It's just extremely disappointing when somebody thinks that they can have fun and destroy some of our beautiful recreation areas. We've closed it because the damage is quite significant and we need to let it dry out, and then our works team will go down there and remediate the damage.
Council says the area will hopefully reopen in the coming weeks, weather permitting. 2 teams from a Tasmanian high school have made the F1 in Schools national finals in Sydney. Convergence and Peregrine, both from Riverside High School, are competing in 2 separate categories. They'll face Victorian teams in their divisions tomorrow. Virtual care could be one of the cures for our crippled health system, included in the release of a new long-term healthcare plan. The state government releasing its blueprint for the next 2 decades.
Taking the next step to meet Tasmania's health needs.
That is 21st century ways of delivering healthcare, ensuring we are innovative, thinking outside the square.
A 20-year blueprint outlining the future of health in Tasmania has been released by the state government.
To properly deliver what is a $2.6 billion health system to fit the needs of our community, we do need to plan ahead.
This plan will connect care across every part of the health system, hospitals, subacute care, rehabilitation, mental health services and primary care services as well.
Aiming for an integrated healthcare system.
We're also leading into, and that digitisation shift we're making, new technology in healthcare.
A 20-year infrastructure strategy with master plans for each of our hospitals, mapping out a very significant health infrastructure pipeline.
The 2040 plan also emphasising the expansion of virtual care options, drawing on lessons learned through the COVID at Home Plus program.
What we've been able to do here with the virtual service is provide equitable healthcare to everyone in the state. We know it is reassuring to our patients that we provide care at all hours of the day and night.
The long-term plan looks at how we can balance our investment in hospital-level care by increasing the care delivered to you either at home or in your community.
Consumer collaboration, another key component.
The inaugural Tasmanian Health Senate debate is planned for this coming May, in which we'll be debating the long-term plan to provide high-level feedback to the government.
The community can also have their say on the future of Tasmania's healthcare system, with consultation closing on May 19. McKenna Bailey, 7 Tasmania News.
The state's social housing stock is about to receive a large boost of smaller homes. 200 modular homes will be delivered over the next 4 years by 3 local businesses: Podmatrix, Davies Construction and the Block Collective.
This is innovation. This is a different way of doing it.
The contract is worth $12.5 million.
The Northwest Thunder season has been dealt a blow just days out from the beginning of the season, with star import leaving the team. Montavious Murphy was signed back in January but will now be heading home. The club says a misalignment of values was behind the decision. The Thunder will now regroup and turn their focus to this week's Tassie derby against the Hobart Chargers in Ulverston on Saturday night. And with round 2 of the Enduro World Cup series just around the corner, Blue Derby has unveiled its newest bike trail. The track, known as Hazy Days, has been named after local Jeffrey Hayes, a man described as a larrikin who died suddenly at the age of 36.
It's a green flow trail, which is sort of one of the parts of the product that's been probably missing a little bit out of our trail network. So that's exciting, and it's been on the go for quite a few months now, and just about finished when the landslip hit.
Blue Derby's world-renowned network now has more than 30 trails. Good evening, everyone. Devonport, the state's top today of 20 degrees, 19 in Burnie, Launceston 17 and 16 in Hobart. Across the state, 18 on Flinders Island, King Island, Lowhead and Strawn all 17, 16 in Grove, Friendly Beaches 14 and just 7 in Lyowini. Cloud can be seen covering most of the state today, with patches of clearer skies over the northwest coast. Further out, low-level cloud is drifting over southeastern states, and another mass of middle-level cloud is feeding over much of Western Australia. Tomorrow, a weakening cold front is crossing Tasmania with a high-pressure centre moving towards the Bight. The low-pressure system in the Tasman Sea continues to move towards the east. South-westerly winds tomorrow 22-30 knots, reaching up to 35 knots about the east coast in the morning, swells up to 4 metres in the west and south. And there is a severe weather warning in place for the east coast. A gale warning is current for the upper and lower east coasts, and a strong wind warning from Tasman Island to Sandy Cape, including southeast inshore waters, Bank Strait and Franklin Sound. And there is also a minor flood warning for the South Esk River. Showers clearing in 17 in Hobart and Campania tomorrow, 16 in Huonville. Launceston and Devonport cloudy in 19, Georgetown reaching 20. 17 degrees in Burnie tomorrow, showers and 15 in Strawn, Wynyard 19. And in the east, 19 in St Helens and showers and 18 in Swansea and Port Arthur. And the UV tomorrow remains moderate across the state with sunrise at 7:25 a.m. On Saturday, showers about the west and far south, otherwise fine. Light showers again in those areas on Sunday. And on Monday, light showers about the west, clearing in the evening. 24 in Perth tomorrow, showers in Adelaide and Melbourne, Canberra 21, sunny and 25 in Sydney and 29 degrees in Brisbane. And currently cloudy and 14 degrees in Hobart, Launceston mostly cloudy and 15, and Devonport partly cloudy and also 15. And that's all in weather tonight, Kim.
Thank you very much, Chelsea, and that is all we have time for this Thursday. Thanks for joining us. Good night.